Assalamu alaikum, sisters. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the next part of Surat Al-Infitar, كَلَّا بَلْ تُكَذِّبُونَ بِالدِّينِ. So the main focus was the day of judgment in order to remind the human, مَا غَرَّكَ بِرَبِّكَ الْكَرِيمِ, the human who was deluded, the human who was arrogant, too arrogant to accept the reality of the message of Islam, the human who rejected the message, truth. And that is because that human, as we said, the arrogance came from the way, for it could be from the way they looked, because of how handsome they are, because of how rich they are, because of how many connections they are, because of how charismatic they are, because of how intelligent they are. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding them that it is He who created them and gave them everything that they have. خلقك فسواك فعدلك في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك. So don't think that your charisma, your intelligence, your connections with people in power, your wealth, your all of this stuff that you have is something that you made your own. This is all coming to you from Allah. So do not be deluded. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after He said, ask the question, what deluded you about your Lord? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here interjects and gives an answer. He says, Kalla. So whatever comes to your mind for the reason you being deluded, no, that is not the case. It's what Allah is about to say. Kalla, indeed, bal tukadhibuna bid-din. The reason you're deluded is because you deny the day of judgment. And as we said in many surahs, Allah mentions the day of judgment. It's one of the 6 pillars of Iman. The Prophet says, those who believe in Allah and the last day, in so many hadith. And that's because this is the thing that pushes you to stay away from sin, that makes you long for that reward and be afraid of the punishment, right? And have that love in your heart for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and wanting to be with Him on the day of judgment. So these 3 things, the love and the fear and the hope, they make the person stay away from sins and go to do good deeds. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying the reason the human was deluded is because they deny the day of judgment. Now the Shaykh al-Sharawi said, imagine if we bring a person who wants to commit a sin, and whatever the sin is, right? Could be zina, could be whatever. And we'll tell them, we're going to put whatever you want to do in one room. Okay, whatever it is, we'll get you the best of whatever you want to do. Whether it's alcohol, gambling, women, whatever. And in the next room, there will be like some sort of fire. And we're going to show him the fire first before he goes. We'll tell him, look, after you finish whatever you want to do in that room, we're going to send you into the fire that you see with your own eyes. Do you think anyone would ever want to do that? Like, would say, yes, I will go to the first room and then go to the second room with the fire in it? Of course, no one would do that. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps reminding us of Yawmuddin. And as Muslims, so of course, if you deny the day of judgment, Allah says here that they deny the day of judgment. This is the disbelievers. Because if a Muslim denies the day of judgment, which is one of the 6 pillars of Iman, they become a Muslim. But what is, in our case, how does this apply to us? The weaker our Iman in the day of judgment, the less we think about the day of judgment, the weaker our Iman becomes, right? And the more sins that we become, bold enough to commit. So if we want to stay away from sins, we keep the day of judgment in our mind. We read about it. We visualize it. We think about how we're going to react when everyone is running away from everyone, when it's 50,000 years, all of these things, in order to stay away from sins. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions something else to remind us to not be deluded. وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ. Indeed, there are observers upon you, meaning the angels who are writing down everything. And Allah describes them, kiraman katibin. Kiraman katibin, they are dignified. And some scholars said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dignified these angels, so do not commit something shameful in front of them. They can see you all the time. They are with you all the time. The scholars have a difference of opinion on whether they enter the bathroom with us or not, because of the dignity that Allah gave to them. And some say, yes, they have to be with you in the bathroom in order to write everything. And some said, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them the ability to know what you did inside the bathroom without being with you in the bathroom. Because we know bathroom is the place for shaitan, and the angels do not enter dirty places. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gave them the ability to see and to know things that are hidden in our hearts. Because there are acts of worship that we do with our heart, right? There are sins that we commit with our heart. If I'm someone who's praying to show off, not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these angels, they need to know that this prayer was not for the sake of Allah. This was riyah, this was showing up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the ability to know certain things that are not even, obvious or shown, or things that we don't even say. If we have hatred or malice or hasad in our heart towards somebody, this also will be written by these angels. And this is where Allah confirms, يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. They know everything that you do. So do not think that you're going to commit something and it's going to be missed by these angels. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ. Al-Abrar we mentioned in the previous surah that we mentioned, Surat Al-Mutaffifin. Al-Abrar. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the reward. إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ. They will be in eternal blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِنَّ الْفُجَّارَ لَفِي جَحِيمٍ. On the other hand, al-fujjar, the wrongdoers, the disbelievers, the arrogant, they will be in Jahim, Jahannam, the hellfire. يَصْلَوْنَهَا يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. They will burn in it on the day of judgment. And the scholar said that doesn't mean they are not going to be punished in the grave. They're still going to be punished in the grave, but the full punishment of the actual hellfire is what they will see on the day of judgment and what they will experience on the day of judgment. And then Allah says about them, وَمَا هُمْ عَنْهَا بِغَائِبِينَ. And the scholars use this verse to prove that the hellfire will never come to an end, that it is eternal. Ghaib means absent. And the verse here says they will never be absent. They will always be in it. They will always be present in Jahannam. And there are other verses where they are even begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to just reduce the punishment for just one day. And the angels will respond that, didn't the messengers come to you? Didn't they warn you? Then you are not going to get that one day of relief. Right? And they will ask Malik, the angel, the guardian of the hellfire, they will ask him, لِيَقْضِ عَلَيْنَا رَبُّكَ, that your Lord put an end to us. And he will say, إِنَّكُمْ مَاكِثُونَ, you are staying here forever. And then they will talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they will say, رَبَّنَا غَلَبَتْ عَلَيْنَا شِقْوَتُنَا وَكُنَّا قَوْمًا ضَالِّينَ رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْهَا فَإِنْ عُدْنَا فَإِنَّا ظَالِمُونَ. Allah, let us out of it. And if we come back, that will never, we will never come back again. Who would come back to the hellfire? Meaning we will do a lot of good so that we never come back to the hell. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will eventually say to them, اخسأوا فيها ولا تكلمون. Don't talk to me again. Right? You're staying there forever. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding them that you're going to be there forever if you are of those who are deluded. ما غرك بربك الكريم. وما أدراك ما يوم الدين. This Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, how would you know what the day of judgment is? No matter how many times you think about it, it will be more harsh, more hard than what we think. And that's why we need to do our best in order to be protected on that day. To be of those, الَّذِينَ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. They will not fear anything, they will not grieve. They will be under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, as they say, if you hear something, it's not the same as you see it. And if you see something, it's not the same as you experience it. We are hearing about the day of judgment. We did not see it, did not see the punishment. We did not experience that punishment. But imagine when we go there, when the Prophet tells us that the hellfire is 70 times hotter than the fire on this earth. Imagine a volcano is one part of 70 parts. The hellfire is 70 times hotter than a volcano. And then Allah emphasizes that. Again, how would you know what the day of judgment is? يَوْمَ لَا تَمْلِكُ نَفْسٌ لِنَفْسٍ شَيْئًا. On that day, there is not a single soul that owns anything for another soul. Right? Because remember here we said that person was deluded because he had lots of connections, and he reached the top of the ladder on this life because of his connections, his charisma, his all of these. But on the day of judgment, none of your connections are going to help you. لا تملك نفس لنفس شيئا. No soul owns or has power to help or benefit any other soul. وَالْأَمْرُ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلَّهِ. The whole matter belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day. That doesn't mean there is no shafa'ah. Of course there is shafa'ah, but by permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the person who will perform shafa'ah and the person receiving it. So if a person died as a kafir, there is no shafa'ah for them, from no one. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and save us from Jahannam and grant us a Firdaus al-A'la and protect us in the day of judgment. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه الغفور الرحيم.